right, so we're here today with Mr. Mark. If you could start by maybe telling us a little bit about yourself, Mr. Mark, where you're from, how long you've been here, and it's always good to see you, buddy.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well,
Okay.
I'm from California and I've been here 3 months, but it's one of many trips here. I've been coming since pre-COVID and finally decided to actually buy a place and semi-settle down here. So I call this my part-time home.
Interesting. And what do you do for a living?
I do computer work, so I have computer, will travel, telecommute, so I can work anywhere. So
Very good. And you say computer work. What is it exactly?
software design, computer programming, database, data mining, stuff like that.
I guess it's Scene 2, Act
Scene
1.
2, Act 1.
Okay. Well, we start off with that, and tell us about the very first time you came to the Philippines, Mr. Mark. Like preparing for your flight, packing. Like, did you pack too much? And then when you landed, where do you land? What's your first impression?
Oh well, of course I pack too much, and I pack things I don't necessarily need. But it takes a few trips to refine what you actually need and don't need, so you can travel light. It's important to travel light in the Philippines, I think, if you're going to be moving around. I flew from San Francisco to Cebu, and I stayed in Mactan, on Mactan Island to start with, and it was super culture shock because it was my first time in the Philippines. I didn't realize how much of a third world it was, so I was pretty surprised at that, and just kind of chilled there. But I went there to meet a girl, and that didn't work out. So I went there just on my own to explore the Philippines. Yeah.
Yeah, I know for me, when I landed, you spoke about the culture shock. For me, I lived in Mexico for 4 years, and I think the GDP of the Philippines is negative 3x of Mexico. And I was very taken back by the level of poverty and struggle out here. What was your experience with that? Was it kind of tough on you to see that when you got here?
It was just more of a shock. I don't take it personally. I'm not all that empathetic, so I'm not like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. No, I mean, that's the way the world is. It's the way people live. They're used to it, and I'm basically just an observer to that. So it didn't really affect me too much emotionally, but it was a shock because I didn't expect it to be so much poverty. Yeah.
If I may ask you, what are your thoughts about how geopolitics and corruption play in keeping the country oppressed as a whole?
Well, I mean, obviously every country has its problems, and I think in the Philippines, I think it centers around just a few families really have all the money and own all the land. And they are, of course, integrated part of the politics. The politics become self-serving. I know, for example, here people love their rice. They need their rice. It's a core thing. And one of the biggest families, owns and produces rice, but of course is in politics also. And so supports the tariffs on rice, which drives the price of rice up. So people who can barely have any money are trying to buy rice, but it's more expensive because of the tariffs, so that, one or two of these big families can get rich. I think that's just an example of the corruption that I know of.
Do you think there's an organized effort to keep the country oppressed, or do you think it's more just like mass corruption and just not care and theft and stuff like this, or both, or something different?
Yeah. It's got to be both, really. It's got to be both. I mean, they're all working together. Some of the rules, like, foreigners cannot own land, I think is part of that, helps propagate the poverty and the rich people staying rich. But there's some conspiracy, probably people working together, and just greed all around. But I don't know.
Do you think the situation here in the Philippines regarding the oppression and the poverty, do you think it will ever change? And if so, what is an estimated spread of time that you think we might see a positive change?
Well, I think it's definitely changing. They're modernizing. I think just in time, as the Western world increases its influence here with America and Japan, Australia, it just seems like there's a greater demand. Also, since the prices are so low, a lot of people come here because of that. So I think in the long run, the demand is being built up, and as the demand is met, I think the economy will rise for sure.
Do you see any potential for different sectors breaking out into this economy?
Different sectors, as in, I don't really know. I mean, clearly agriculture is a big piece. And of course here in Cebu, the call centers. But, it's just because, the wages are so low here in the Philippines. I mean, here in Cebu, the minimum daily wage, I think, is like 420 or something pesos.
Which is what, about 720 or something now?
Yeah, maybe $8.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, per day. And Manila is higher paying. It's like 600, $12-13 a day. So as long as the wages are that low, people are going to remain in poverty, and other countries will continue to outsource to call centers and BPO, business process outsourcing. It's huge here. So those are the biggest sectors, biggest growing sectors for sure.
Do you see coding, like any kind of coders or programmers making a breakout here? Since they speak English, they can kind of communicate better than the Pakistanis and stuff can, where there's a lot of coding coming out, a lot of talent coming out for coding now.
I think there's certainly the potential for that, but it seems like India kind of has the corner on the market there. Companies in America are outsourcing programming work to India quite often. I haven't heard or seen of it here, not that I necessarily would, but seems entirely possible and probably a good idea. I mean, I know they have great universities here. And, Filipinos are super smart. So it's definitely a possibility.
Speaking of intelligence, I agree with you. They're super smart. You don't want to underestimate anybody. However, I've heard foreigners speak about things like it seems like, from what I've heard from other foreigners, there seems to be a lack of in-depth thinking, like generally speaking, amongst the population. Yeah. What do you think that's? I mean, I've heard it's because of diet. I've heard it's because of education. Like, what do we attribute that to?
I think clearly it's just to basic, trying to get your basic needs met. When you're worrying about food and water and shelter, you don't really have the free time to think deeply or, get into that stuff. So.
And why couldn't they chill for 2 years in Mindanao?
Just, it's so isolated to start with. And out, away from the cities and civilization, in nature. So.
Yeah, when I tell other Filipinos that I lived in Mindanao, especially the locations in Mindanao I was in, their eyes.
Yeah, super remote down there by General Santos. Yeah.
Maybe we should chat about airport and hotel shenanigans. That's always a fun conversation. I mean, I'll start with me so we can vibe a little bit here. I know for me, I love to fly. The act of flying is just kind of therapeutic and enjoyable to me, more so than like the geographic location. There's just something fascinating about modern flight and travel. Kind of makes me feel empowered and get energetic and refocus in my structure in mind. What do you like about flying and traveling?
Well, I like, I mean, it's interesting to see the different airports and just kind of how they're organized and the different levels of airports. I think, here in Cebu, we have a really good airport and it's central to all the Philippines. So it's definitely one of my favorites. On the other end of the spectrum, obviously, is Manila, which is not even barely tolerable. You can't get around. You got to take a taxi from one terminal to another, or wait for a bus. Who knows how long? So I don't necessarily look forward to the actual flying. I think it's more of a means to an end for me than something to enjoy in itself. But I definitely like your approach to enjoy the flight. So
when you fly domestic or international, are you a first class guy?
No, never.
And why not? I mean, we know you got racks on racks on racks. Why are you not a first class guy? Tell the people, because a lot of these young people watching, they think if you don't fly first class, you have no class.
Oh my gosh.
So tell us why you don't fly. I don't fly first class either.
Tell first class, business class, I could really care less. It's just a matter of getting from point A to point B. So, and it's just a few hours out of your life and you can sit and sleep. So I don't see paying big bucks just for a few hours of a little extra comfort.
How heavy did you come when you landed the first time in the Philippines? How many check bags? How many carry-ons? What was your setup like?
I probably had one check-in and a good-sized backpack.
Oh, so you did better than me. I brought 3 check bags.
Yeah, now I do all just carry-on. I have one backpack, and I pack things in the little packing bags. And it's all like fully organized and just one backpack with 1 week's worth of clothes. So I do laundry once a week. So I can travel light and that can last me forever.
Let's maybe recap too about why you chose to settle. I mean, look, honestly, buying an apartment in Asia is a serious financial commitment and a little bit scary to navigate. Why did you choose Cebu and specifically IT Park to settle in?
Well, first of all, Cebu it's really a great city. I mean, as far as all the cities in the Philippines, in my opinion, it really stands out. It's the Queen City. It's got a great energy to it. It's really vibrant and active. At the same time, it's pretty safe. I feel safe here. And IT Park in particular, because it pretty much has everything just right there. It's got food and it's got a park, literally a park, like one of the only parks in Cebu. And and coffee, all important coffee for me. And it's got everything right out the door. So pretty much all these other places, I've been all around Cebu looking at apartments, condos. There's some really wonderful buildings. But as soon as you step outside the building, there's pretty much nothing. You're on the road. It's a dirty road. There might be a 7-Eleven or one little store or something, but for the most part, there's nothing. And IT Park has everything. It's got the mall, which we're in right now. Super nice, just 2 minutes away. So
I know for me, I'm not trying to badmouth foreigners when I say this, but it seems like the percentage of scumbags, excuse my language, is higher outside of IT Park in terms of foreigners. Every foreigner that I've met so far in IT Park is highly affluent, educated. They've got careers or they're like extremely successful retired men. And not only that, they're all like super cool and super genuine, at least the ones I've met. What are your thoughts about that?
No, actually, absolutely. I concur. Most of the foreigners here in IT Park specifically are fairly affluent. Cebu is kind of the hub of the Philippines. So a lot of people are coming through. They're travelers. Whereas in some of the smaller areas, the foreigners are pretty much, as you said, kind of more tending towards low life scumbags. it's, it's true. It's sad but true.
I know for me, when I started living in IT Park, honestly, within the first few hours, it felt life changing because I've grown up and living in IT parks my entire life, mostly, and they're all pretty much the same globally. No traffic lights, no stop signs. It's everybody there is working hard and making money. And so when I landed and checked in and this and that, I felt like I was right back at home. And not only that, I almost feel like I'm in the United States.
Yeah. Well, that was one reason why I didn't like IT Park the first time I saw it. I'm like, oh no, I don't want to be here. But after I had been to Cebu a few times and finally decided, yes, I want to actually get a place and have a home here, uh, and looked at all the other places, I realized, like we were saying before, if you want good food options and any options outside, yeah, IT Park's really the only place.
What possessed you, if you will? What was the straw that broke the camel's back to commit financially to purchasing a condo? Because the reason I ask you is because these things are extremely difficult to resell, from what I've heard. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
It almost seems to me, with respect, okay, I say this, I want to know why. It almost seems like you can get jammed up and stuck. So what was your? I guess the logic was not a savings thing, is what I'm trying to say. I don't know.
Right.
What made you go that deep into Asia?
Well, for me, the motivation was, I kept coming back to Cebu just because of its location and its airport and it's the hub. And uh, and I get a little bit particular about where I'm staying, and it's just really nice to have your own space, and be able to kind of organize and put things, and to leave your stuff there. So I just kind of wanted to have my own space here that I could customize. I put in new faucets and new shelves, and and I can make it the way I like it, and it'll stay that way, and it'll be there for me. Price wise, it is a significant investment, but it's like roughly equivalent to maybe a car or pickup truck in America, talking 60, 70K. So it's significant, but it's not like buying a house in America.
Mm-hmm.
The process of buying real estate is very sketchy and a little bit scary. But it worked out for me. So all's good that ends well. All's well that ends well.
If I could ask you, because I know a lot of people out there wonder this too, at least the ones that are in the know with real estate. Did you consider having the apartment reappraised before you agreed on a sale price?
Uh, you know, they don't really have appraisals here, like in America. They don't have escrow. They don't have disclosures. They don't have, inspections. It's really by the, by the cuff of your shirt. And I shopped around enough to where I felt pretty confident, that I was getting a reasonable price as far as appraisal goes. You look at enough condos within, the building that I got, they range from, they start around 3 million pesos and they go up, depending on how big it is, to a certain range. And I was within that range, so I was comfortable with the price.
Thank you to Canada Dry, one of our sponsors. Cheers, buddy.
Bottoms up.
So, where were we?
We were going to talk about islands.
We were. I thought we steered in a different direction. Take your time, no pressure. I can cut everything out. It's actually, like I say, it's good to have more cuts.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the troubles you've experienced while you're here. It could be anything from a Gcash scam all the way up to a shakedown.
Well, there are a lot of checkpoints, on the road, which sometimes they'll take you by surprise. I've never had any issues per se, but it's a little bit nerve wracking when you're getting stopped by unknown, officers with big guns, kind of in an unknown area, checking your ID and checking all the paperwork for your motorcycle. I have, just traffic violations over the years. Made a few mistakes and gotten caught in the act. But luckily, with one exception, I've been let go. I find just like in America, as long as you're polite and don't argue and admit it and say, "Hey, I blew it," I didn't. Just say the truth. I thought I could, but or I knew I shouldn't have, but I tried it anyway. Whatever. They'll usually relate to you and let you go. Um, and some will try to get cash, as you know. Um, in which case, typically you would want to just say, "Hey, just write me a ticket," or if you're not happy with what's going on, you can ask for due process to bring a supervisor in to help with the situation. Um, had no bad endings per se. Had to pay 300 pesos cash once, and that was about it.
Filipino food, what's your favorite?
Well, I like pancit bihon, which is the small noodles. Chicken adobo has a lot of good flavor. Um, those are my main favorites. So much fried food, it's hard to find healthy food, as you know. So.
I honestly, I hope that other foreigners see this video that like are vegans or like salad eaters like us. I honestly, I want to get to the bottom of the lettuce shortage. I think it's a demand problem as well. I think it's a demand problem.
Yes.
But at the same time, even if it was a demand problem, I think that it could be solved by a very slight price increase, like at a retail level and wholesale level or whatever. Instead of charging me 400 for a salad, charge me 550, and that will adjust for the loss of having like it's the same thing we do in the U.S. with like fish or any other thing that spoils quickly. We charge a slightly higher price. So for that reason, I'm still a little puzzled that we're agreeing, and I think other people would agree that it's a demand issue, but the demand issue could be solved by a slight price adjustment. No.
I don't know how raising the prices is going to increase the demand. What do you mean?
So, for example, if there's only two salad eaters in this entire hotel, I know as the kitchen manager that I'm going to have to I'm going to have a lot of waste lettuce that I'm throwing out, therefore creating loss. But I also know that if I increase the price significantly, the loss is relevant. And my customers are going to be happy, even though there's only two of them, and they'll spend more money in the hotel.
But the opposite of that would be price salads are actually relatively expensive here. You pay what we paid 300 pesos for a salad, which you can get a meal for 200 pesos. So maybe if they lowered the price, they would sell more. I don't know.
That's a good point too.
I think there just isn't a demand because of the Filipinos don't like to eat salads.
Tell us about. Tell me and the viewers what you were telling me about the other day in regard to you've never ridden a scooter before, because I've never ridden a scooter before either until I came to Asia.
Yeah, no, I love motorcycles. I race motorcycles, but I'd never even ridden a scooter, and I was kind of poo-pooed them and looked down on them because they're like these little things with not much power and dangerous because you can't get out of a car's way or something stupid like that. But once I got here, it's like that's all they have. You don't see much of any two-wheel vehicles above 150 cc's, and most of them are all scooters. So it's the best way to get around for sure, especially if you're on a small island or any of these islands. You can do a taxi, You can try to figure out the bus system. Good luck. Or the jeepneys. Good luck as a foreigner. And the scooters, dude, they're so much fun because they're so simple. You got no gears, no clutch, front brake, rear brake, twist and go. It's as easy as that. And you're more connected with the environment and the people around, and the smells, the sights, the sounds. You're more embedded in it, so at least it gives a better experience, I think, riding around on in the back roads. You get a real good firsthand experience.
For me, first I want to say I'm extremely impressed with your riding ability. And I was actually impressed that you told me you rode MX. I don't even have the balls to ride MX. I'm terrified of taking large jumps, but riding with you, honestly, I've never seen somebody on the street in Asia get as low as you do in turns. You're not afraid to take a spill. Even in a parking garage where I know the concrete is covered with that slick stuff, you're cutting it low. Yeah. We call him the street killer. That's what we call him. Yeah. Interesting. One of the amazing things to me about these automatic bikes is how balanced they are. I don't know what the inertia is going on, like the laws of physics going on, and the inertia, a chain and manual versus a CVT. But the CVT, I can almost ride these things at 2 or 3 kilometers an hour with no hands on the handlebar. Yeah. It's so well balanced. Yeah. Not to get too technical and off topic, but what do you think is the reason for those bikes being so well balanced and also so well handling?
Well, low center of gravity for sure. Low center of gravity, and I will give you a riding tip. Something I discovered, because through the city, a lot of times you're going really, really slow, and if you give it a little bit of gas and hold the brake at the same time, you bring up the revs, which increases the angular momentum within the engine, and it gives better stability. So you can go more slowly without having to put your feet down. You can balance it more easily. Just a side tip for you.
That's actually a very good tip. I used to do stuff like that, riding enduro, like on my YC250. This is back in 2003. My 2-stroke, my prized pro circuit 250 2-stroke.
Sweet.
I bought it for $2,000. The guy wanted $3,200, but he was such a nice guy. I saved up $2,000 at my first job for like a year and a half, and I found it in the newspaper. Remember when they used to sell bikes in the newspaper?
Yeah,
like classified ads and stuff and print paper. Yeah. And I went there and I was like, "Look, sir, like I'm just a kid. I've been saving this up for however long." Like, and he's like, "All right, I'll give it to you for $2,000."
It wasn't the sympathy angle.
It wasn't. It was just the truth. Like, man, I really want your bike, And he's like, "All right, just take it." What is speaking of bikes? Because I know there's a lot of people. There's a lot of guys that watch my videos. Actually, what is it? Like I say, if you could have one dream bike. Now, earlier you told me riding conditions. Let's just say wherever you think you spend your most time in your life, whatever is most applicable to your life as a man, what would be your best bike to choose?
Well, it really still comes back to where, like here in Cebu City, you need a scooter just for city driving. If you're going to go out in the province, then you need something with bigger tires, a little bigger motor. They have, and then it's just personal preference, what kind of style of bike you like. So I like my KTM Duke for all around outside the city riding, and Honda Click for in the city. If it had to be one bike, you're going to be compromising on both sides. So something like a Honda ADV, the adventure bikes, scooter, it's kind of big for a scooter. I think it's too big for a scooter, but you could go for a long ride on it outside the city pretty easily, and you can get around in the city. So you compromise on both ends, but probably pretty good.
Okay, we're both bike guys, so I don't know. I don't know you well enough. You probably don't really care about cars, but if you could have one car right now, modern day, it could be any car. It could be a classic car. What would your one car be?
At home? In America? Or?
Sure, or here or wherever.
Oh my gosh.
What's your favorite car?
I've always loved 57 Chevy.
Let's say daily driving.
Daily driving.
Yeah.
Just the SUV. I have an Explorer that I love because it has great ergos and the setup, the gauges and the buttons and just the adjustability of it and the dependability of it. I don't want to have to be worrying about, breaking down, and, low maintenance costs is important. So I love my Ford Explorer, honestly.
Did you grow up in that San Francisco area of California?
Yeah, Northern California.
Northern California. Interesting. What was it like growing up there back then?
Well, it was largely farmland and open. Um, the towns were smaller and kind of further apart, it seemed. The towns have expanded, the housing area has expanded, so there's less space between the towns. But I just remember well, we lived on a farm. I lived on 50 acres and 20 acres, so it wasn't really normal. Most people lived in town. So my experience is kind of biased on that side of being more in the nature side, open land. And it's really hard to come by nowadays.
I guess we're going to give you a list of names, and you can say like yes or no. If you like them, if you don't like, we're just going to go with yes or no. We're not going to get into it why you don't like them.
Okay.
Joe Rogan.
Yes and no.
Oh,
yes, definitely.
Steve Jobs.
Yes, definitely.
Bill Gates.
Yeah.
Apple products before Steve Jobs died.
Well, yes and no.
Apple products after Steve Jobs died.
Same difference.
Really?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, so we're stopping at yes and no. I gotta say, proprietary, that scares me, pushes me away. I don't like it.
George Soros.
I don't know.
Oh.
Cut that one.
I gotta watch what I say. I was about to ask you Black Lives Matter.
Oh, okay.
We can't get that deep. I mean, unless we want to. Black Lives Matter.
Much ado about nothing. Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
That's inappropriate.
I'll take care of it.
It's a yes/no. Black Lives Matter. I mean, yes and no. Come on. You can't win for losing on that.
What do you think about marijuana laws in states that are not legal and mandatory minimum sentencing?
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, like Texas or something. That's terrible. People going to jail for marijuana. I mean, it's ridiculous. Alcohol, I think, is much worse of a problem than marijuana. Marijuana is so benign and really, good in many ways. So
I've actually seen, since I've been in the Philippines, since marijuana is illegal here, like the only mental escape it seems like these people have, and to a large degree, is alcohol. I've seen so many people go down the path and literally they're not an alcoholic and they became an alcoholic because it's like there's nothing else to relieve the tension every day.
Yeah. Drinking is definitely part of the culture here.
Chevy or Ford?
Chevy all the way. Even though I was just talking
up to Ford.
I was talking up to Ford, but Chevy any day.
Chevy. Heavy in the Chevy.
Yeah.
My favorite Chevy is the Chevy Malibu or Chevy Impala.
Yeah, I like the old school cars and the pickup trucks.
Where do you see the Philippines in 20 years?
I think it's going to be a really different place. Honestly, I think the younger generation is already changing the country a lot. At least, like at a grassroots level, I feel like the younger generation are more connected with the Western world and America specifically, and those values that aren't held by the older generation. So I think as they get older and become the mainstream, it's really going to change the culture a lot, and not in a good way, honestly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm actually glad you said that because that segues us into what I was going to ask you next, and that's that it seems to me like like in America, there's obviously all the pop culture for the most part, unless we're talking like K-pop, comes out of America. All the videos, all whatever, songs, music, movies, it's all come from the States. Um, what I've noticed is that in America, the majority of people understand, for the most part, that it's entertainment. What I've seen in other countries is that it's fed into much deeper, whether it's hip hop music. Obviously, hip hop, they talk about drugs and this and that. We know not to get involved with that stuff. It's just entertainment. On other types of popular culture, if it's a romantic movie or whatever, talking about promiscuity, we know not to get involved in that stuff. It's entertainment. But what I've seen happen with the popularity of this kind of stuff is it's degraded countries and cultures. Would you agree, disagree? What are your thoughts?
I don't really see that influence necessarily. I mean, I feel like it's more a reflection of America than internalized as a role model and way to be. I think the people here hold pretty tight to their cultural norms. The younger generation, like we're saying, is breaking out of that, but I think it mirrors more how Western world is, like in America, like specifically a kid's connection with the family and what they do as they get older and having more independence. Um, I think the American media is and the sports are certainly consumed here and throughout Asia. Um, and I think it leads to more of them seeing that as think all Americans are like that. That's kind of what I've seen.
Favorite science fiction movie?
Matrix.
The Matrix. Great answer. Yeah. Great answer. Second favorite science fiction movie?
Oh yeah, Terminator.
Oh man, I knew you were going to say it. That's honestly, it's the same for me. I'm either Matrix, or you can flip them back and forth.
Yeah. Then Star Trek.
Favorite action movies?
Action movies. Honestly, nothing really comes to mind. I always like the 007s, but that's going way back. So, being in Asia, I've seen a number of Chinese movies, which are super cool, just because they're a little different than the American movies. They have kind of a deeper plot and, kind of a new kind of cultural take on things.
Favorite author?
I would have to say,
not a fiction author. Favorite fiction author?
I don't really have a favorite fiction author.
Tom Clancy for me, all the way. Okay. I've read every Tom Clancy book.
Yeah, I'm a slow reader, so I don't read that much.
He's a slow reader, but a fast driver.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, guys. Well, that's it for today. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.